We're ready, Gabby.
All right. Hello, everyone. Just so you know, we are going to be recording this meeting so that you all will have access to it in the future. And if you have any comments or questions, you can put them in the chat. Please hold your questions till the end so that we can get to them all at once. You might have your question answered along the way. Welcome. My name is Gabby Rosenthal. I am a state program admin here at Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Part of my role is managing the solid waste hauler reporting program. And today we'll go over the ins and outs of the program and make sure we're all familiar and have a better understanding. So first up, our agenda for today. We'll talk a little bit about the goals of our presentation. We want to understand hauler reporting, the who, the what, when, where, why, and how of the program. Then we'll go over how to get started and the general information form, the Greater Minnesota reporting section, and the Metro reporting sections, and then we'll finish with a Q&A. Some of our goals for today. We want to understand the value of hauler data to the state, our communities, and environmental protection. Know when, where, and how to report. Ensure accurate data and improve compliance with the program, and reduce any confusion surrounding hauler reporting requirements and reporting processes. So who needs to report? According to Minnesota Statute 115A 93, all collectors of mixed municipal solid waste, which includes recycling and organic material, commercial and residential trash, must all be licensed by a local authority and report tonnage data to the MPCA. In short, if you are collecting material from a commercial customer, from a residential customer, if you collect any solid waste, any trash, recyclable materials, organics, or yard waste, these all fall into the category of mixed municipal solid waste. It's a really broad category, and we ask you to report tonnage based on the county of origin and by destination of the material. In the Metro as well, we'll have you report the city of origin. Just to give you a greater overlook in detail, this will look like any haulers of your municipal solid waste or trash, haulers of all recyclable materials, including single-stream recycling, scrap metals, grease, white goods, mixed or single-stream organics, yard waste, and any other organic or recyclable material that will be collected and taken to processing. This does include junk haulers who are delivering to landfills and resource recovery facilities, as well as C&D or roll-off haulers, as many will have mixed loads oftentimes and deliver to MSW facilities throughout the year. Folks who are not required to report are transfer haulers or industrial-only haulers, with some exception for C&D haulers who truly never have any yard waste or MSW loads. So why do we ask you to report? Hauler reporting data is really essential to help our state, counties, and municipalities understand their waste generation for understanding the flow of the waste to help them determine their planning, grant funding, and infrastructure needs. Minnesota has a goal by 2030 of reaching a 35% recycling rate in Greater Minnesota and a 75% recycling rate in the metro area. These are really ambitious goals that necessitate waste generation data is collected so we can understand where material of each type is disposed and how to further reduce or plan for that material to be handled within our individual communities. In addition, we want to have a greater sense of the impact of the waste on our communities and build trust in our waste disposal and recycling and organics recovery systems. I know there's a lot of misinformation in the world of recycling, so having data to know that those materials are picked up and taken where they're supposed to go is really essential to build trust with our communities. Additionally, why do we report? The data that is reported in the hauler reporting program helps us understand the flow from the generation of that material to the first point of tip. We use that information when we determine tonnage allocation at the state level for Certificate of Need, or CON. And CON is the amount of waste a land disposal facility is allowed to accept based upon the demonstrated need for that capacity in that given region. It also helps our counties in their data collection for Select Committee on Recycling and the Environment, or the SCORE program. This is a report that provides county-level recycling and waste generation data to the state, as well as grant funding that counties can use to do recycling activities and education. And lastly, it helps us just get a better big picture of our waste generation so that we can develop greater access to recycling and waste diversion programming, protect our environment and our resources, and provide the necessary public education to do so. Here we have a bit of a big picture of how the data sources all tie together and flow so that we understand and have a map of our waste generation and disposal. So here on the far left, you can see hauler reporting contributes to us the county and city of origin for the material, the tons of MSW, recycling, and organic material collected, that first point of tip facility destination, and information on the split between commercial and residential generation. Then from facility reporting, we understand the incoming tons those facilities accept, any transfer information, and then the receiving facility for transferred material, disposal data, a breakdown of recyclable materials, and tonnage for all of the categories of solid waste, including municipal solid waste, construction and demolition, and industrial solid waste. And then lastly, the county score reports, which do also rely on hauler reporting data, tell us the total generation of MSW, recycling, and organics by county. They give us some commercial self-hauler data and determine our county recycling rates so that we can compare across the state how counties are doing and how individual communities compare in their waste generation. To give you a better picture of our current status of the program, compliance rates in 2022 with the hauler reporting program were just above 50%. This low compliance rate can be attributed to a few different reasons. A lot of counties have haulers that are reporting that might not be licensed by them. Many counties have haulers that are collecting material but aren't yet licensed. And some licensed haulers are not reporting. This may not be for the fault of anyone. With staffing challenges at the MPCA, we have not had the appropriate manpower to make sure that we are following up to ensure the quality of that data and that there's adequate education so folks that need to be reporting know that they need to be reporting. But now, as of this past year, this is a dedicated portion of my role, and we're working to make sure that we can improve compliance with the program. So we really appreciate your help in this effort. As you can already see, this data is really essential to making sure that we plan for our solid waste infrastructure and programming in the state. So moving on to look at reporting deadlines for the program. We have a February 1st deadline, which is just a couple of weeks away, and it goes across the board for the program. The general information form, which all reporters must complete, is due on February 1st, and you have to complete this before the other forms will be available to you. From there, if you collect in Greater Minnesota, you'll need to fill out one form per county per destination facility in which you collect each year. In 2025, we do have some improvements that should make that a little bit more seamless, but for now, it is one form per county per destination facility in which you collect. So we'll go into a little bit more details later in the presentation on that. And then in the metro counties, we do ask for quarterly reports. So you will fill out one collection information form annually that'll give us just some details on the frequency of pickup and what you pick up in each county. And then from there, we ask for a quarterly long form collected and delivered form. That'll tell us the generation and delivery of your material. If you, in the metro, collect material in one quarter, but not the other, so you have a quarter that you didn't collect any material at all for a given county, but you do collect throughout the year there, we ask that you just submit that form with a 0 tonnage that quarter. So moving on, we'll talk a little bit about how to get set up and get started in the program. The hauler reporting program is submitted via an online web application called ReTrack. You can access this and get started by going to the MPCA website. There on the solid waste reporting page, under the hauler reporting header, there are 3 videos that will walk you through making an account, signing up for the program, and completing all of the necessary reporting forms. Please use these videos first. And if there are any issues after doing so, you can reach out to me for assistance. Please as well register and ReTrack with a general business email if you have it. There's a maximum of 2 users per account. And oftentimes with turnover, this can mean that folks lose access to their account and you have to come to me to change that account email. And it's much simpler if you have a general business email that folks will always have access to, that you use that when you sign up. So getting started reporting, this is the first form you'll have to complete. It's called the General Information Form. Once you're registered, you'll have to complete this form before the rest of the forms will populate for you. And if you need to change the information on this form at any time, please reach out and I can put this form back in draft status for editing. The first question will ask just whether or not you've collected any material for the year. For most of you, that answer will be yes. And then it will ask you in greater detail whether or not you've collected residential recycling and if you operate in the 7-county metro area. If you select that you collect residential recycling, you will get a drop-down with asking for some more information on what materials you do accept for single-stream recycling. So if you don't collect single-stream recycling, you can answer no to do you collect residential recycling. But if you select yes, we just want to get some extra details on what materials you do collect so that we know statewide what education efforts will be helpful to residents in each area. As we continue through the general information forms, once you select that you operate in the 7-county metro area, you'll get these 2 questions. The second question here refers to, do you operate residential recycling, single-stream recycling routes in the metro area? Select which counties you do. If you don't collect any, don't select any. And then the second question refers to all other services, both commercial and residential. So that includes trash, specialty recycling, roll-off, organics, and yard waste service. So from there, you'll select any of the other metro counties in which you operate. Once you've completed all of that information, you'll also select whether or not you operate in Greater Minnesota. Select yes or no. Then you'll certify the information and provide your contact info. please be sure to save and certify as complete. If you don't save this as complete, you won't be able to proceed in the reporting process because the remaining forms won't be available to you. If the information changes throughout the year and you need to make any changes, please reach out and we can set this back to a draft status for you. Moving on to the Greater Minnesota reporting forms. As I said a little bit earlier, you will need to create and enter one form per county and per destination facility. If you have multiple destination facilities in one county, you will have to submit multiple forms for that county. Please also ensure that the facility you select here is accurate. The material type delivered should be consistent with what that facility accepts. So please don't enter all of your MSW hauling tons and recycling hauling tons to the same facility. Most of the time that will not be the case. Most of the time you'll be delivering to a MRF and a landfill or waste to energy facility. So those should be separate. And then just as a note for 2025, we will be changing the way that this form looks. It'll look a little bit like the Metro forms you'll see later. So you won't have to complete multiple forms per county. Here we'll have you, once you've selected your destination facility in your county, input the material for that facility. And then if for that facility you're delivering yard waste or source separated organics, we'll have you note whether they're separated or combined. For almost every facility in the state, the answer is going to be separated, as most facilities want their yard waste and single stream organics, or source separated organics as separate material loads. Continuing on, we'll ask you the same information, but for your commercial routes or commercial customers. And then we'll have you certify the report and save. Again, please make sure that you save as complete. And then you can use this checkbox here, and it will, once you've saved, create an additional form so you can just get started on that next destination and county. Any forms that are in draft status will not be considered complete for compliance purposes because we can't certify that data. So please make sure that you are saving as complete when you're done with them. Moving on to the Metro reporting forms. You will need to complete a collection information form for every Metro county in which you operate. On the left, you can add all of the cities in which you collect. And then you'll note the frequency of pickup for those material types. You'll only have to complete one form annually for this information, and then you can save and certify the form. Once you've completed this collection information form, you will have a long form, collected and delivered form available for each quarter in the county that you operate. There must be one form completed for each quarter for each county in the metro that you operate. Again, you'll add your cities on the left of the form and input tonnages for each material type that you collected for that quarter in that city. If that tonnage is 0, you can leave it as 0. If you haven't collected at all in a county for that quarter, we'll have you select one city that you usually operate in and just input zeros. As a note for folks who are going to be completing their Q1 reports for 2025 shortly, there are some new categories in 2025. These are optional, but if you have any construction and demolition, reuse for MSW, or reuse for building materials that you'd like to report, you are welcome to enter that tonnage as well. And then on page 2 of this form is your delivered information. It should have all of the same boxes as the collected information, so this is just a small portion of it. Here, you'll select on the left all of your destination facilities. Please make sure that you are accurately utilizing those destination facilities. Oftentimes, one company may operate both a material recovery facility and a landfill in a similar location or under the same company name. So make sure you select the correct destination facility so that we don't say that recyclable materials are going to a landfill, for example, or vice versa. Once you've entered all of the tonnage by material destination, we'll have you save and certify that form as well. And then lastly, in all of these forms, if you don't see a destination facility listed that you deliver to, you can select not listed from the dropdown and then input the facility name and state. In the Greater Minnesota reporting form, you'll also be asked the destination city. And then the list of destinations should be updated this year based on new data we've gotten. So please double check that the facility you are looking for is not there under a slightly different name. So you can check the permit numbers as well, just to make sure that we're not putting facilities in the not listed form that are in the form. And with that, that concludes my presentation. So I'll take any questions.
We have one in the chat, Gabby, that asks, can you explain reuse of MSW more?
Yeah, absolutely. Reuse as a category can be pretty broad, but we do know we have a lot of folks who do C&D or sort of junk haulers that are hauling material like couches and furniture, which would often go to a landfill and be considered MSW, but they might be seeing that that's in good condition and taking it to a restore or somewhere that will reuse that material. So that's really what that category is intended for.
Hi, Gabby, Dave Lemke, City of New Hope. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Perfect. Now, this is probably maybe I don't know, I'll just use the word silly question. So the only trash that we pick up is from our city parks, our public works facility, and our city hall. And I've been filling out the report for years, and I'm guessing the way I've been doing it has been correct because I don't hear back from you that I'm not doing it correct. So am I following things? I mean, off the top of your head, I realize you can't look it up, but it must be okay.
We haven't had a lot of opportunity to dive deep into quality assuring everyone's reports in the past, but that is a goal for the future. So if you have specific questions about how you're filling out the form before you complete 2024 forms, please feel free to send me an email and I can dig into that detail a little bit more. But off the top of my head, I don't know.
Question just ask for, residential or commercial or whatever, and I don't know, technically what you'd want to consider parks or our buildings. So that's
commercial.
I've been pulling it out, I guess. I don't have it in front of me right now. I have it in a file, but
yeah, we would consider non-single family home points of collection as commercial.
Okay, non-single family home. Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh,
I have a question regarding reporting for the tonnage and the weight, especially when you look at your destination facility. Take, for instance, Pioneer Fiber. We send out our cardboard as well as our paper. How do we mark that down for, do we just utilize both and count for one tonnage since it's two separate types of recyclables? It's the same question for Northern Metals, the same way they take all of our aluminum as well as our tin.
Yes, so we would, the form only asks for the tonnage per destination. And when it comes to recyclable materials, it's not broken out into that specificity. So we wouldn't ask you to complete multiple forms for that one destination.
Okay, it was just asking because I've been filling out the score report for the county forever, and of course, everything is listed separate. So this is good to know that one tonnage for each destination.
Yeah, the score report goes into a little more detail in that regard.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, you're next. Mary
I
Witucki?
just asked the question.
Oh, sorry. Would you repeat it, please?
I think that was the question I just answered.
Yes.
So
If you
we
have
can,
two, go ahead.
did we
Oh,
answer your
sorry,
question,
Mary.
Mary?
Yes, you answered. I just wanted to explain to her what we were asking is if you have more than one recyclable going to the same destination, how do you break it down? Or do you just include all the recyclables that you're sending to that destination into the tonnage?
Okay, so we answered that one. Got it. Thank you.
Dustin Solar, you are next.
Yeah, this might not be relevant because I'm in greater Minnesota, but for demolition waste, all of our demo waste goes to a landfill and it's used in or measured in yardage and not weight. Does that affect me at all? Or
Good question. So
Great.
a couple of things here. We will also have those optional categories in 2025 for Greater Minnesota. Just completing those forms is a little further away for Greater Minnesota, but they are optional. So don't have
Okay.
to report on it, but if you do, you can do the conversion to convert that material from yardage to tonnage based on weight estimates.
Thank you.
Gabby, we have a question that came up. I think it was in relation to the reuse of MSW. The question was, you mentioned industrial only haulers as exempt from this reporting. Can you define industrial only?
Industrial only would be material that comes from an industrial facility and goes to an industrial landfill. Hopefully that answers the question in enough detail for you.
And then as Eric Otto, I asked the question, and so then I don't mean to sound picky, but what exactly do you consider an industrial landfill? Because that's not the world I live in. I don't talk. We would either call it a hazardous waste or a RCRA RCRA Part C. So are you talking about just a municipal type landfill?
Heidi, if you want to maybe help me with
Here's
this
my
one
issue.
too.
I'm a hazardous waste transporter, and we pick up waste from industrial facilities. During the course of our business, we also pick up non-RCRA waste, which from a technical standpoint is solid waste. But it is generated at in industrial, and that's why I picked up on what you said. And I can't find a place where we have submitted this report in the past, and I just want to make sure that we're not missing something. So I want to know if we're included in this reporting requirement.
Do you mean? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gabby.
I was going to say that in part, it's going to depend on your destination facility. So if the material is going to a municipal solid waste landfill or a municipal solid waste cell of a landfill, then it would not be considered industrial waste.
Okay. So what if it's going to a hazardous waste landfill? Then you would consider it industrial waste and we would not need to report it.
Heidi, can I ask you for help on this one?
Um, that hazardous waste is a different issue. I think we would have to get an answer, do a little research on that to make sure that we're answering it right, Mr. Otto.
Yeah.
Can you send an email to Gabby and
Absolutely.
we'll follow?
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that,
sure.
for your patience there.
Not
We will
wrong.
follow up and try to get you the most accurate answer.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Okay, Peter S. was next.
Yeah, I just got one quick question regarding yard waste. Just my experience, no place that we dispose of yard waste at measures it in tons. It's always in yardage, and there's not an option for that on the form. So are we just guesstimating at this time, or is that potentially something that can be added, like tons or yardage? And if you have a preference, just note it, like use tons if you prefer tons, but
We will likely be keeping it with tonnage, but there are some really helpful conversion tables. So I can get you those conversion numbers where it's just a quick estimate of what the total weight would be based on the yards delivered. So I can send that out if you want, if you send me an email.
okay, that sounds good.
And then Dustin Hanson has a question in the chat. It says, if you have your own transfer facility, are we reporting the same MSW twice? Once to our facility for the transfer station and then once from the transfer station to a landfill?
In the hauler reporting program, you will only be reporting the material collected and then to the first point of tip, which would be the transfer facility. And then that is all you'll report in the hauler reporting program. There is a separate facility reporting program where you'll include the data for tonnage from the transfer facility to its final destination.
Dustin, do you have any follow-up questions on that?
I don't. I had just picked up on the term she had used earlier, where it was the first point of tip, and I just wanted to make sure that we were going to be reporting it correctly, because we transfer it ourselves from a transfer facility. I just wanted to make sure we weren't double counting by
Thank
doing
you.
it that way. So you're welcome.
And then another question that came up, Caitlin asked, am I understanding correctly that we do not have to report construction and demo that was hauled?
Construction and demo material that is delivered to a construction and demo landfill is not statutorily required to be reported. That's correct. However, in 2025, we are giving you the option to report it if you're already reporting some MSW totals. We'd love to have the information.
Any follow-up questions, Caitlin?
Yeah, I
Okay.
got a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Like on a new home build, you got a contractor and they produce C&D, and then in one dumpster they'll put MSW. Is that considered commercial or is that residential?
That is typically considered commercial, since in the case of construction, the person who is hiring that collector and hauler is the commercial builder of the builder of the building. So residential typically refers to residences where they're getting regular pickup for
Okay,
their
that
waste
answers
haul.
my question.
Mary, you have another question? Or is your hand still raised from the original question? Must be.
Sorry, I was trying to get my mic off. It wouldn't let my mic, I do have a question for the quarterly reporting. Can you repeat who's all involved on the quarterly reporting? Is that considered, is it all haulers or is it a specific?
Yeah, so the quarterly reporting is specifically for haulers operating in the 7-county metro area. So that's Anoka, Carver, Dakota, Hennepin, Ramsey, Scott, and Washington. So if you collect any material in any of those 7 counties, you have to report quarterly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question on the chat, Gabby. It's from Doug Becker. He said, we believe different counties in greater Minnesota submit our tonnage in the score report every year. They get this information from us, and I assume you're a hauler, Doug. Do they still need to report? Do you still need to report?
Yes, you do still need to report your requirements to report to the MPCA and your requirements that a county might require as part of their licensing are different. So we do still need that hauler reporting information via the MPCA reporting program.
Okay, so then one follow-up question to go along with that, Gabby. So we also have a trap division that collects grease trap waste from customers, but they don't get, none of that material gets hauled back to any of our facilities. It gets hauled to wastewater plants and stuff like that. Does that material need to get reported as well?
It's a good question. I know we have had grease haulers reporting in the program because that material is considered an organic waste. But I do understand that the destination facilities might not be listed for you. So if you don't mind, I would love to follow up with you on that question. Just to make sure I can point you to reporting properly.
Okay, thank you.
There's no other questions in the chat.
I'm going to pop in and ask one more question. The separation between commercial and residential, if people are out running routes and they're picking up both commercial and residential at the same time, do you suggest just using a percentage? About 25% of our route today was commercial, and doing it that way?
Yes, I would. If you don't have separated routes, I'd calculate it based on knowing both the number of customers that you have that are commercial versus residential, and then the size of their containers. So your typical commercial customer should be weighted higher than a residential customer because they're likely to have a much bigger volume, much bigger weight.
Perfect.
I want to add to that also that as haulers, I know that you haul across county lines or city lines, and how you report. It's very important that you at least estimate a percentage of that load that would have crossed maybe even state lines. Estimate the percentage of waste in that load when you document the tons of what's coming from out of state or out of county. And make sure that whoever you're delivering that to knows that also, that the waste is coming from different areas, because there might be fees and taxes that are different for if they're out of county and if they're in a district or an out of district, or there's contracts involved. So that's something else that needs to be thought about when you're reporting.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Do we have another question?
Dustin, do you have another question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have one more, and I believe you already answered it, and I think I already know the answer, but just to verify, from our facility, we will haul recycling to out of state. That all needs to be reported as well, correct?
Yes, if the waste is generated in Minnesota, we do need to know the collection information and the destination facility.
Okay.
So there are some out-of-state facilities listed. If the one you delivered to isn't, just put not listed and then write in the destination.
Okay.
So we don't
Thank you.
need to know we don't need to know material that's collected outside of the state of Minnesota. But if it's delivered outside of Minnesota and generated in our state, that's what we need to know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do a last call for questions. Well, thank you all for joining us today. It's much appreciated. If you do end up with any follow-up questions, you can reach out. My email and phone number are here, and I'm happy to help. Thank you for spending some time with me today, and we really appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about the program and make sure you're reporting properly.